Okay, this is the Oz report for June 18th, 2022. And let's start, as always, with the Plex or Plex adjacent items. All right, Plex price this week. It took a little bit of a breather. It's still around 3.8 million, but it's still very, very high. So the current Plex price is high still because of the sub price increase that we were seeing because of the lack of supply of Plex coming in. Various other reasons like global instability, various reasons for people to sub with Plex rather than real money. So lots of pressure on the Plex market. What's very interesting as well is that we've seen Plex volume go down all week, right? So in a week where you may have expected Plex to go up in value because there was a sale on the amount that on the amount of Plex you needed to subscribe for 1 month Omega. That's how you say it. That's not what we saw. On the other hand, you could say, okay, people needed by taking advantage of that sale, people would have needed less Plex to subscribe, but I would have thought that this would have triggered a little bit more. This is generally not a good sign. This means that Plex is getting so expensive that people may not even be able to afford anymore to Plex to subscribe using Plex, and that's that's a larger issue. If you look at the other items here, the directly linked large skill injector rose by a lot this week. That is not surprising. We've talked about this in the last few weeks. The current profit for skill farming is so bad. You're losing so much on skill farming because the Plex price is so high that you will have just seen a lot of skill farms either stopping for temporarily or stopping overall. And that would be limiting the supply for large skill injectors drastically. And that's why the current price, even at the current large skill injector price, the loss that you're doing on skill farming every month is still, I think, around 1.3 billion ISK. And so this is probably not even done yet, right? If the Plex price stays high, this might rise even more. And at the current price of large skill injectors of 770 million, it's just a time where skill points are very, very expensive due to the increase in sub prices that we have seen. Multiple pilot training certificates, those are on sale currently, so you might see those drop a little bit in price. They have already dropped a little bit in price, but they're just overall not very popular in the market because most forms that you purchase now, including the new ways of buying multiple pilot training certificates, are directly applied to your account. They're not a tradable item anymore. So here, this only applies to the tradable portion of it, and that's just as you can see here, it's very, very few of them. All right. Skill extractors. This shows you a lot about skill farms, right? Skill extractors are trading at half of what they're half the volume they were trading at a month ago. So this is an indicator that skill farms, that there's a lot fewer people running skill farms or skill farming their characters, even if it's not a farm, but maybe just 1 or 2 accounts, and their prices have just skyrocketed because of the Plex price increase, right? Because these are also directly related to the Plex price because they're in the New Eden store. So RMT, a very, very exciting time, right? Very, very exciting time to be trading right now. It's all of these together are basically half the market in JITA. That's how big these markets are. So that's that's something you have to keep an eye out to understand the rest of the economy. Let's jump quickly into items that are winners of the week. Let's look. These are items that high trade volume items above 5 billion that went up more than 10%. The Dominics and the Leshak, the reason they increased in price quite significantly is not because their production cost increased. That's just because people went in and just bought a lot of them. So Leshak and Dominics right now, and Worm, by the way, the same. Worm the same. They just all increased because their supply is running out. Right? This is just a an impact of what is going on in the game. Not only are battleships popular, I think we did have a 1v1 battleships, if I remember correctly, at some point also. So just overall supply running low, but this is a very temporary thing, right? This is something that will be corrected very soon. Other than that, the winners of the week: Auto Integrity Preservation Seal, just a component for faction ships, battleships, and they were just very low, and increased 10% is just not a they're just finding their space. But last week it was 47 or something. Now it's 52. It's this is the area where it's going to settle in this type of market. Chaotic electrical filaments, I mentioned that last week during the Oz report, I think as well. That started becoming very popular in the last week, and it has just increased in price a lot. If you have those lying around, maybe it's a good time to sell them. The way that filament pricing works is always that people look at the price of a filament before they start farming that type of filament. If it's too high, they stop farming. That hurts the demand on them, and then they drop down in price. That's why filaments are such a great item to trade in, because it's a very cyclical economy, right? And here the electric ones are just on the up right now. We have some more battleship modules like the Imperial Navy 600mm steel plates and the Navy Cap Booster 3200 that have increased in price, and that's just goes hand in hand with some of the battleship prices. And then, interestingly enough, Zydrine, one of the basic minerals, just absolutely skyrocketed. The availability is depleted by a lot, and this also probably due to the amount of production that is going on battleships and the like. That's where the most market volume of Zydrine goes, is battleship production, and so that's why I would guess that Zydrine is just on a rally right now. If you look at the items that have dropped the most this week in terms of ships, let's start with the freighter and the jump freighter of the Kaldari variant, the Rhea and the Charon. These dropped in price, but that is not very surprising. I think I also mentioned that last week. Freighters specifically are still trading a lot above build price. The build price dropped quite significantly by 30 or 40%. But the sell price didn't really, after the last industry changes, didn't really change all that much. It actually started rising again last month. And so now this drop is very unsurprising for the Charon, and consequently also for the Rhea, because the production cost is much more, much closer to around 8 billion, and now it's trading at 12.5. And yes, you have some logistics around it and that sort of stuff, but still I would expect freighters and jump freighters to come down in price, because they still haven't dropped enough based on the industry changes that we saw. The Typhoon and the Raven are two battleships that dropped in price, but that was just coming down from high prices, kind of like what we're seeing on the Leshak and the Dominics now. The Raven and Typhoons were just high, and they came back down. So 300 million is the normal price for them right now, based on production costs. So this is just coming back to normal. Not going to jump into all of these. Ballistic Control System 2, they've been dropping a lot. Pricing is based on Moon Goo. right? Production cost of these should be around 500-600K, right? So this is this is just based on raw material price developments. Contaminated Lawrence fluid is used in tier 1 rigs, a very high volume item. This was just trading at an insanely high 200 million, and this just makes me think like, there wasn't enough in the market available to kind of respond to the initial push of production, increase in production that we saw after the latest patch. But then, pretty quickly this has come down to a more normal price again. Right now they're trading at 138, which is a much more normal price if you look at the 52-week average. So also basically a normalization of that price. What's interesting is the Corpi A-type multispectrum coating. This is a dead space module that is very popular, very high trade volume. You can see here there's 25 to 50 of them traded every day, and this is for an item. This is for an item that is trading at 100 to 150 million a pop. So very popular. This has come down to what? Buy price 111, sell price 144. That's a very nice margin. And 111 is if you look at the 52-week price development, is a price point where you can definitely go out and try to snag some of these and trade them for a profit. Last week we talked about enhanced ward console. These are used in shield extender rigs, for example. That's the biggest use for them. Last week, right in this show, we talked about how prices were absolutely insane, and right afterwards they started coming down. I wonder if people were just listening and noticed that they had a bunch of these lying around and maybe flooded the market a little bit, which is good. Because this coming down means that it takes some pressure off rig production, but two, this is also probably going to have the nice side effect that if you look at the medium core defense field extender, that the other components, the power circuits and the logic circuits, might be going up in price because it's the availability of enhanced war consoles is higher again. So this might even out a bit. In the past, these two were kind of cheap. The power circuit and the logic circuit were kind of cheap, and the enhanced war consoles were expensive. And now this might even out a little bit. All right. Raging gamma filaments. So as I was saying earlier with the electrical filaments, these are quite frequently very popular. The gamma filaments, they are shield, they're for the shield Gila, for example, and these just hit a price around 13, 14 million, where it just becomes too expensive for it to be a good farm in abyssal space, and then people stop flying them. As you can see here, the volume dropped quite significantly over the last week, and then the price drops as well. Here, you basically go in, you try to buy sub 10 and then try to sell over 12, and this being a very high volume liquid item, this turns out a very good trade profit maker, the Raging Gamma Filament. All right, we're gonna cap things off today by talking about high volume items. So these are items that are trading not at high trade volume, but that are trading, if you look at the number of items exchanging hands, are trading at least 50% above the yearly average. So these are items that are hot right now, that are being traded a lot in terms of their numbers. And unsurprisingly, we're seeing the Dracovac and the Vetmac again. If you look at the volume graphs, the Dracovac and the Vetmac were the ships that got the cheapest, percentage-wise speaking, after the last patch, the Siege Green patch, and so these are now gaining popularity again. It's already, you know, falling off a little bit, but the Drakavac and the Vetmac are definitely very, very hot markets right now. Very, very cheap. The Drakavac you can buy for 140 million, the Vetmac for 60 million. That is a great price for these ships. The Ishtar as well. The Ishtar is it has been rising in trade volume for the last 4 months. Would be an indicator, I guess, of increased ratting going on, because that is the biggest use for Ishtars. Also used in abyssal space, but I think overall the vast majority of these are used in ratting. Auto integrity preservation seal, we already talked about that. Cobalt, for some reason, is trading over yearly average. Mid-grade Virtue Omega, random implant trading. Their nano transistors also, although the price has dropped a ton. This is just used in in tier 2 production, for example. And then we have, last but not least, the self-harmonizing power core. And the self-harmonizing power core is one, yes, used in structure building, but two, also used in capital core temperature regulators. So the new capital components, and these increasing in value quite significantly is an indicator of people at least returning a little bit to capital production or production overall. And so we'll see what this market holds. In the end, there isn't enough here to sustain production. But then again, if you're talking capital production, you would assume that most people doing capital production have an alternative source of these P4 goods rather than the market in JITA. So it's an indicator, but you can't judge from the volume here to the capital production in the wider space of medium. All right. So that's it for the Oz report this week. I'll see you guys next week, and we'll return to the regular stream. All right.